Hey guys, Eric and Terry here to talk about the Walking Dead episode, The Same Boat. Full spoilers. If you haven't seen it, stop watching or keep watching because you don't care about spoilers.
Because we're here to talk about Carol and how she
Carol.
is the boss biatch that we all want to be and love and have in our life.
It was a great episode for Carol, a very interesting one because there was a lot of back and forth with where was her mind at? I have to ask you a question. Were you fooled, until she took the rosary and we saw her slice open, do you think she really was completely sort of lost as she seemed she was in that moment?
I never, the second that she switched into that cowering Carol persona that we've come to know and love and respect, that she can just whip out whenever she needs because she knows that it will protect her and people will underestimate her. I was like, oh yes, I'm with you. What surprised me actually was at the end when she was so emotional.
Yeah.
Because I feel like this is a character who for a while didn't let anything faze her, or at least didn't let it show that it fazed her. And we saw at the beginning of last week's episode that, she had sort of settled into this. She was feeling the weight of killing all those people on her shoulders. And I think seeing someone who was so much like her, who was sort of the mirror image of her in this group of people who are in the same boat, I was really surprised that she did get so emotionally invested and really didn't want to have to kill this person.
Yeah, I will say I was a little more, I guess I was like, wait, is this for real? Only because it came off of last week's episode, which was very much showing the consequence, the price, that it was all weighing on her, keeping track of how many people she'd killed and not in a gloating way at all. At the same time, it would have been too much. It just seemed like way too much for her to be hyperventilating and all that stuff.
Oh my God, I loved that scene. I was like, you are forcing yourself to hyperventilate right now. It's so calculated that even Maggie was clearly, what are you doing right now? What is happening?
But I really liked that it was a mix, that basically everything she was saying was real. I mean, I think including the fact, of Maggie has to live over her and all that stuff, it's like, it was all coming from a genuine place. And so it was different than when she first got to Alexandria and she's like, I'm Carol, and she put on the sweaters. That was complete artifice. Maybe it was a little bit evoking her past, whereas this was this weird, interesting, very fascinating mixture of some real things that were weighing on her mixed with I'm going to do this to get out.
I love that Carol has become this show's secret weapon. I get frustrated every time the show underuses her, which I did feel like we got some of that in the first half of this season, and a little bit at the beginning. I was like, when are you going to do something with Carol? I think we can all sort of universally agree that The Grove is the best episode this show has ever done.
I think so.
And that was a big standalone Carol episode, and I think that this was another phenomenal one. I am just so constantly impressed by Melissa McBride.
Yeah.
And spoiler warning, for the comics, I just want to say, skip over this part, I'll do a hand wave. I don't want to ruin anything for you, but if you're still with us, there's a big death that happens in the comics, and I think that it would be a mistake for the show to play that out the same way it happened in the comics, so people are assuming someone different will die, and there's speculation that Carol might be the person who dies, and I just really hope that's not the case. I would be emotionally shattered.
I think it would be a big loss to the show because I did feel she was being underused, especially when they came back from the mid-season break. She wasn't really getting a lot of material. This episode again proved how strong a character should become. A couple years ago, I remember we were talking here at IGN about how we thought she'd become probably the best character in the show, and I think this reinforced that. It really was a reminder, especially when you think back that she is one of the only characters that was there from the very beginning. The very, very beginning. I don't think she was in the first episode, but the second
and
episode
had such an amazing arc too.
Yeah, one of the best arcs. Especially on a show that can be a little overly cynical, I think, at times about the sort of Rick's thing of either you're weak and you fall or you strong and you survive. But it's like we saw her change and grow. But at the same time, I do love that these couple episodes managed to say, okay, she's changed, but there's still a price for that. That's what
all
I
I'm
think
saying
is
is
great
if
about that.
Carol dies, I riot. And that's the end. That's my hand wave. That's no more spoilers, no more spoilers.
And then I do want to lastly just touch upon, it wasn't, Walking Dead is often not subtle, so no, it wasn't subtle with the dark mirror image as you put Polly, played by Alicia Witt, who I thought did an excellent job as that character. But it really was strong material, the two of them, that back and forth, and just someone who had completely closed herself off, just had become this Terminator that we've also seen Carol become, but never looked back. And just like when she's like, once I hit double digits, I stop counting, you know, which Carol's just hit double digits and she's not. Yeah. And so I thought that was really cool. And then, you know, up to the ending that she did try to save this woman, but it was not.
And I will say one last quick note, like there was an interesting line in there that one of the characters said to Maggie where she was like, you guys aren't the good guys. And I think it's really interesting because we saw in last week's episode again that these Rick's group was doing something truly terrible, trying to get ahead of the curve on Negan, but like setting themselves up for everything that comes to them afterwards. And I think this was another interesting twist on that, where we see everyone being so protective of Negan, everyone saying, I'm Negan, I'm Negan, I'm Negan, to protect him in a way that Rick's group would protect him.
Yeah.
So I think they're doing a really, surprisingly, I think a little bit subtle job of setting up the duality of those groups and Negan not just as a person to be feared, but also to be respected.
Yeah, it does go back to when, you know, Rick even showed up. When they showed up at Alexandria and Rick had sort of become almost a governor-esque character for a little while. And like, so now we're getting into that murkiness, you know, because again, it's clearly Negan's group are horrible people who have just closed themselves off. Yet we're seeing our group have to do such terrible things to stop them. And I am glad that they're really examining, like, the toll that can take on someone. So, yeah, just awesome stuff. And Carol, I agree.
Queen Carol.
Yeah, Carol rules. We love Carol. So let us know what you thought of this episode, and let us know what you thought of Carol in this episode. And in general, do you agree with us that Carol is the best character on The Walking Dead?
And if you don't think she is, who do you think is the best character?
Good question as well. For plenty more on all things Walking Dead and Carol being awesome, keep it here at IGN.